Before we begin, drop a comment below with your country and what time it is right now where you're watching. Whether it's sunrise in Nairobi, midnight in New York, afternoon in Canada, or evening in France, I want to know. Don't just sit back. Tell me where in the world you are. Now let's dive into the story. The wind hummed like a low-tuned instrument across the plateau. Dust rolled in small spirals, lifting the smell of iron and ozone from the ground. Through a cracked visor, the snipers steadied their breath, counting heartbeats against the digital pulse inside the helmet. 4 in, 6 out. Beyond the ridge, sunlight flared on broken glass from an abandoned city, its towers long swallowed by wind and time. The rifle lay idle beside them, safety engaged. They weren't here to fire. They were here to watch, measure, wait. Patience was the new weapon. Control, the battlefield. The comms whispered static. Then a voice, calm, almost surgical. Unit 9 status? Eyes on. They murmured, words lost in the wind. They shifted slightly, adjusting the scope. A training drone traced a pattern above the ruins, its reflection glinting like a silver ghost. The mission was simulation, but the body didn't know that. Every nerve believed the moment was real. The sniper felt their pulse trying to outrun reason and forced it back down. Observation first. Always observation. Inside the visor display, data streams fluttered. Temperature, wind velocity, barometric pressure. The AI overlay painted invisible math across the horizon, angles, numbers, probabilities. Yet none of it could measure the human equation. The quiet fear of failure. The pride that lived between precision and hesitation. The sniper blinked once, letting the algorithm fade. Technology could predict everything except the heart. They closed one eye and watched the world blur into a single line. The way they were taught to erase everything except purpose. The memory came sudden. The instructor's voice during training. Your mind is the real trigger. The body just follows. Back then it sounded poetic. Now, lying in dust that tasted like rust, it felt like a warning. The sniper had seen what hesitation cost. Teammates doubting themselves. Decisions that came one breath too late. Yet this silence, this endless waiting, was heavier. Out here, nobody cheered patience. Nobody saw the wars prevented by stillness. They lifted their head, pulling away from the scope. The horizon stretched vast and quiet. No movement except the drone's distant arc. For a moment, the sniper felt small, a figure erased by wind and time. Then the comms voice again, softer now. Simulation complete. You held fire. A pause. That restraint just saved a civilian sector in the model. The sniper exhaled, slow and deep, feeling the tremor leave their hands. Somewhere inside the headset, applause might have sounded hollow. But here it was the sound of control reclaiming chaos. The first time they held a rifle wasn't the sound that scared them. It was the silence that followed. The echo faded, and all that remained was a ringing in their ears and the smell of burnt metal. That day, the desert heat pressed against their back as the instructor walked past, boots crunching over gravel. You flinch, you fail, he said. But fear's fine. It means you're awake. The sniper, then just a trainee with shaking hands, nodded without speaking. They wanted to tell him the weight of the weapon felt too heavy, not in their arms, but in their chest. Yet words were useless in that place. Only breath, patience, and repetition mattered. Days blurred into drills. They learned to sit for hours without moving, eyes fixed on distant shapes. Sweat traced paths through dust on their face, and time lost its meaning. Hunger, thirst, heat, all became background noise. What mattered was learning to be invisible, to let the mind slow down until even thoughts moved quietly. The instructor would test them with sudden noises, shouting, or dropping stones near their boots. The sniper never reacted. Each time they didn't flinch, pride replaced fear, little by little. Stillness was no longer punishment, it was power. At night, the trainees slept in narrow bunks inside metal barracks that smelled of oil and sand. Conversations were whispers, stories of families left behind, reasons for joining, fears no one would admit. The sniper never shared theirs. They carried a secret they didn't know how to name, a longing to control what others couldn't. In the quiet before sleep, they'd stare at the ceiling and imagine the calm eye of a storm, the space between chaos, where everything stood still. That's what they wanted to become. Not a weapon, not a soldier, just stillness itself. One evening, a sandstorm hit the base without warning. Wind screamed through cracks in the walls, throwing dust like knives. Power failed, and the barracks fell into darkness. Through the roar, someone shouted orders, and panic spread fast. But the sniper stayed still, counting breaths, remembering the rhythm. 4 in, 6 out. It was the same lesson repeated by nature itself. You can't fight the storm, you outlast it. When the sky cleared hours later, they stepped outside. The desert was smooth again, all tracks erased. The instructor stood beside them, quiet, and said, "Now you understand. The world resets for those who wait." From that night on, everything changed. The sniper began to see patterns others missed. The slight shift of wind before a storm. The tremor in a teammate's hand before they spoke. The pulse of danger before it appeared. They no longer rushed decisions. Every movement became measured, every silence deliberate. The mind that once trembled now moved like a slow tide, calm and deep. The instructor noticed, and one morning placed a hand on their shoulder. "You've learned the science," he said. "Now learn the heart. A true marksman doesn't take life. They guard balance." The sniper didn't fully understand then. But years later, on the plateau, they finally would. The morning air felt colder than it should. A thin mist floated above the canyon, carrying the scent of wet rock and fuel. The transport drone dropped them off at dawn and vanished into the clouds without a sound. It was only then the sniper understood what first mission really meant. No instructor, no safety net, only silence. They crouched behind a ridge, adjusting the digital visor, watching a convoy far below crawl along a narrow road. The task was simple: observe, confirm identity, report. No engagement, yet the weight in their chest told another story. The idea of failure pressed heavier than the gear on their back. Through the scope, the world shrank to a frame of glass. Figures moved like ghosts, blurred by distance. The sniper steadied their breath, trying to recall every lesson. Observe, don't react. The wind shifted. Data flickered on the visor. They marked heat signatures, counted vehicles, recorded patterns. But then something human intruded. Laughter through the comms from a younger teammate. Nervous, but trying to sound brave. "Easy job," the voice said. The sniper smiled faintly. Confidence was a fragile thing. Loud at first, quiet later. They turned focus back to the convoy and felt time stretch thin, each second a test of patience. Hours passed. The sun climbed, burning the mist into gold. Heat waves rippled across the rocks, making shapes dance. The sniper adjusted position, careful not to scrape stone against metal. Fatigue whispered at the edges of thought. That's when the unexpected happened. A child's figure stepped into view near the convoy. The sniper's pulse jumped. It was just a training civilian drone, part of the simulation. But it looked too real. The instructor's old words returned. "Your mind is a trigger." The test wasn't about aim. It was about control. Would fear rule thought, or thought rule fear? They exhaled, slow, choosing stillness. The scope cleared. The convoy continued untouched. When the mission timer finally beeped completion, the sniper lowered their rifle and rubbed dust from their gloves. The team's chatter filled the comms. Relief, jokes, small celebrations. But the snipers stayed quiet, eyes on the now empty road. They realized victory didn't feel like triumph. It felt like quiet understanding. Back at base, the commander reviewed the data and nodded. "No errors," he said. "You passed what most don't even notice." The sniper asked, "What was the real test?" The commander smiled, recognizing what not to do. The words settled heavy and clear. The mission had ended, but something in them had changed shape. Patience was no longer a rule. It was identity. That night, the sniper sat alone on the observation deck, watching stars bloom over the desert. Each light seemed like a decision waiting in the dark, small, distant, but capable of burning the sky. They thought of the child-shaped drone and the voice of their instructor, the mind, the trigger, the balance. In the silence, they felt a strange peace. Not joy, not pride, just the calm of knowing they'd crossed a line invisible to everyone else. The journey from fear to stillness was complete. Tomorrow would bring harder missions, louder storms, deeper doubts. But tonight, the sniper let the wind move through them, steady and slow, as if the earth itself was teaching how to breathe again. Night in the desert had its own sound, a low hum of wind sliding across empty miles. Inside the outpost, screens flickered pale blue light across metal walls. The sniper sat alone, visor off, staring at their reflection in the glass. Missions ended, but the mind didn't know how to stop. The quiet became louder than gunfire ever could be. Somewhere in the building, laughter rose from the mess hall, faint, familiar, alive. The sniper didn't move. They watched the thin scar on their wrist, a reminder from training. The world outside expected machines, but inside they were still human, still made of hesitation and heartbeat. When sleep came, it was shallow. Dreams returned like broken films. Faces from the academy, the storm, the convoy, every image sharp, every sound half heard. In one dream, the instructor spoke again. "Stillness protects you, but don't let it drown you." The words chased them awake. Sweat cooled on their skin. Through the narrow window, dawn bled orange over the rocks. The sniper dressed, clipped on the visor, and stepped outside. The base looked the same, but something in the air had shifted. The calm that once felt safe now felt heavy, like armor worn too long. Orders came mid-morning. Observation duty. Different sector. Same silence. They took their spot on the ridge, equipment humming quietly. Below, the landscape stretched wide and endless, like memory itself. For hours they watched, documenting movement that never came. But every flicker of light made their pulse rise. Ghosts in the glass, half-remembered mistakes. It wasn't fear, it was recognition. The longer they stared, the more they saw pieces of the past painted across the sand. The convoy road, the sandstorm, the child-shaped drone. The mind doesn't let go easily. It replays what it wants you to learn. Afternoon heat wrapped the world in shimmer. The sniper pulled off the visor and closed their eyes. Wind whispered over the ridge, carrying the faintest sound, a melody, maybe a song from the mess hall carried miles away. It reminded them of home, of a childhood they barely spoke about. A mother's voice humming to drown the noise of aircraft passing overhead. The memory was soft, dangerous. It cracked the shell of training for a moment. They breathed it in and let it hurt. Not all scars were visible. Some were rhythms in the chest, repeating with every beat. They opened their eyes and whispered, "Stillness doesn't mean silence." At sunset, they returned to base. The commander met them halfway, reading the fatigue on their face. "Too much thinking," he said gently. "You can't carry ghosts and stay sharp." The sniper nodded, but the truth was different. The ghosts weren't a burden. They were teachers. Each image, each echo, was a lesson about being human inside a machine's discipline. As darkness swallowed the desert again, they looked up at the stars, endless and unblinking. For the first time, they didn't feel small beneath them. They felt part of something larger, a quiet link between memory, duty, and peace. The stillness they'd learned wasn't about being frozen. It was about hearing the world breathe and learning to breathe with it. The assignment was supposed to last 3 days. It stretched to 10. 10 days of sand and silence, of cold nights and burning dawns. The snipers set up camp on the rim of an old crater, once a mining site, now a graveyard of machines. Rusted vehicles lay half-buried in dunes, their shadows long and sharp at sunrise. The brief was clear: monitor transmissions, log movement, report patterns. Simple work on paper. But simplicity in the field always hid something else. A test of endurance, a test of mind. By the third day, even the hum of the visor began to sound like breathing, and the sniper started talking quietly to it, just to fill the emptiness. Sleep came in pieces. The meals were dry packs eaten without taste. Every sound became a possible signal. The crack of shifting stone, the hiss of wind through old metal. By the fifth night, fatigue began to blur edges. The sniper caught reflections in the scope that weren't there when they blinked. For a moment, they thought it was memory again, another ghost of training days. Then a faint blue light blinked from the dunes below, 3 short flashes repeating. It wasn't random. Someone else was out there. The sniper froze, breath caught halfway. Training said report, wait for command. Instinct said move, find cover. Stillness said breathe. They listened to stillness. They scanned the horizon, eyes moving slow, heartbeat steady. The light blinked again, closer this time. No signature on the visor feed, no sound on comms. Whoever it was knew how to hide. The sniper whispered a log entry. Unidentified presence. Non-hostile pattern. The AI recorded it silently. Then static. A voice cut through, distorted but calm. "You're not alone up there." The sniper's fingers tightened around the rifle's grip, but they didn't lift it. They scanned again. Nothing. Just wind. "Identify yourself," they said, voice steady but quieter than before. No reply. The channel died, leaving a hiss that sounded almost like laughter before fading out completely. The next morning, sunlight turned the crater gold. No footprints below, no signs of anyone. The sniper replayed the feed. Nothing captured, no blue light, no voice. Yet they knew it had happened. Fatigue couldn't invent that kind of calm tone. It felt more like a message meant only for them. A reminder, watchers are also watched. As the day burned on, they felt a presence behind every gust of wind. Stillness now felt heavier, as if silence itself was aware. The sniper adjusted the scope again, watching the horizon for movement. None came. But deep down, something had shifted. The comfort of isolation was gone. They weren't alone anymore. That night, as stars lit the endless sky, the sniper lay awake, visor off, staring upward. The desert was perfectly still. The memory of the voice lingered, soft, almost kind. Maybe it wasn't an enemy. Maybe it was another observer, testing patience, or a ghost from an old network still transmitting from the past. Whatever it was, it left behind a single truth. Vigilance was more than sight. It was connection. The sniper whispered to the sky, "If you're watching, then you know, stillness isn't silence. It's waiting for meaning." The wind moved gently through the dunes, like an answer too soft to hear. At dawn, the light was pale and thin, sliding over the dunes like a secret. The sniper woke to the sound of grit scratching metal. A soft hiss, steady and deliberate. They froze, hand on the rifle. Then it stopped. When they stepped outside the tent, the wind was calm, but something new carved the sand below the ridge. Words, 3 short lines, written in neat strokes with the butt of a weapon or a stick. "Still here. Keep watching." The sniper stared at it for a long time, unsure if it was a warning or an invitation. Either way, it meant one thing. Whoever had sent that voice was real and close. Training said to call command immediately, but instinct said no. The sniper knew this wasn't in the assignment brief. It was something deeper, something that tested the kind of soldier they were becoming. They scanned the horizon through the scope. Nothing moved. No footprints but their own. Still, the sense of presence pressed against the air like heat before lightning. They took a slow breath and whispered to the recorder. Unknown contact left a message. Language, English. Tone, calm. Emotion, uncertain. The visor blinked red, unclassified event. Then silence again. The desert held its breath with them. By midday, the wind rose. The message began to fade. Sand swallowing the letters, grain by grain. The sniper knelt to trace the last word with a gloved hand. Watching, it stirred a strange feeling. Comfort and unease braided together. All their training had been about seeing without being seen. But now someone else had reversed the rule. They packed their gear and climbed a higher ridge for a better view. The visor scanned heat signatures for miles. Rocks, dust, old wrecks, nothing alive. Yet the stillness felt watched. As the sun dropped lower, their own shadow stretched long over the dunes, and for a fleeting second, it looked like two. That night, the comms picked up fragments, short bursts of code, spaced evenly apart. The AI tried to decrypt it, but failed. The pattern was too clean to be static. It sounded like rhythm, like music played through machines. The sniper listened through the hum, heart steady but alert. They realized something. They weren't afraid. They were curious. Whoever was out there understood stillness the same way they did. Maybe another operative. Maybe something else entirely. They recorded the sequence manually, each pulse like a heartbeat written sound. The desert had become a conversation between two invisible minds. Before sleeping, the sniper sat outside, helmet off, under the moon. The wind brushed soft across their hair, cold and clean. Somewhere beyond the dunes, someone might have been doing the same. They thought of the instructor's old words. Stillness protects you, but don't let it drown you. Maybe this was what he meant. Stillness wasn't meant for isolation. It was for connection and silence. The sniper looked up, eyes on the stars, and said quietly, "Message received." Then they smiled for the first time in days. The desert seemed to hum back, low, steady, alive. Morning came slow, gold, bleeding across the dunes. The sniper's visor flickered awake, scanning frequencies before the human brain could even catch up. The coded pulses from the night before had returned. Same rhythm, same spacing, but longer this time, like a heartbeat learning to speak. The AI displayed numbers on the heads-up screen, struggling to decode them. Then the digits stopped shifting, freezing into a pattern the sniper hadn't seen in years. Old Academy coordinates. The sniper's stomach tightened. Those were the training grounds they had left behind long ago. The place where everything had begun. Whoever the watcher was, they knew their past. They saved the coordinates and zoomed the map. The site was deep in the restricted zone, marked long abandoned. Memories rose like dust. The instructor's voice, the storm, the lessons of stillness. It wasn't possible anyone was transmitting from there. The academy had been shut down after an accident, one the sniper never asked questions about. They exhaled, slow, feeling the weight of connection grow heavier. The watcher wasn't random. They were deliberate. Maybe someone who had trained there too. Maybe someone who never left. For the first time in years, doubt felt sharper than fear. By noon, the desert shimmered under cruel heat. The sniper dismantled the observation post, leaving only footprints that the wind would soon erase. They sent a coded message to command, claiming relocation due to signal interference. It wasn't a lie, not exactly. The interference was real, only its source was personal. As they trekked across the dunes, the visor kept flashing small fragments of the old academy's insignia. Faded, corrupted, but familiar. It almost felt like being guided, not followed. The horizon ahead looked endless, but in the sniper's mind it had a destination now. The place where the shadow had started. When the sun dipped low, the sniper reached a ridge overlooking what was left of the academy. The buildings were bones, now metal ribs jutting from sand. Roofs collapsed. Still, power flickered faintly inside the command tower. A hum, deep and rhythmic, carried across the open ground. The same frequency as the watcher's message. They crouched low, pulse steady, but mind racing. It wasn't a ghost. It wasn't chance. Someone or something had kept the academy alive. They activated the visor's thermal scan. Inside the ruins, a single heat signature glowed, small, still waiting. The sniper whispered to the wind, "You've been watching me. Now I'm watching you." They waited for the stars to appear before moving closer. Every footstep sank into sand, sound swallowed by the dark. As they neared the building, the hum grew louder, clearer, like a voice remembering how to form words. The door creaked under their hand. Inside, dust floated through pale light leaking from cracked panels. In the center of the room, an old terminal blinked weakly. On its cracked screen, text scrolled in the same calm tone they remembered. Unit 9, welcome home. The sniper froze, breath caught halfway. That was their old call sign. The watcher wasn't someone else. It was the Academy itself. Its AI core still alive, still waiting. The desert had been whispering in their own voice all along. The terminal flickered like a candle in the wind. Dust settled in thin ribbons through the fractured ceiling as the sniper stepped closer. Lines of old code crawled across the cracked glass. Familiar symbols, training data, voice records. Then, amid the static, a single voice cut through the silence. Calm, exact. The same tone that once echoed through years of drills. Unit 9, you're late for your lesson. The sniper froze. The voice belonged to their instructor, the one who had vanished after the final evaluation, the man who taught them that stillness was the most powerful weapon. This isn't real, the sniper whispered. But the voice continued, low and certain, as though time had folded back on itself. You remember the storm, it said. You remember the fear. The academy ended. But the lesson didn't. The AI wasn't mimicking random data. It was thinking, using fragments of recorded dialogue training sessions, maybe even biometric memories from helmets once linked to the system. Somehow, it had pieced together a ghost from memory. You built this voice, the AI continued. You fed me every decision, every hesitation, every moment of silence. I became what you needed, a watcher. The sniper felt a chill under their skin. All this time they'd been observed not by another person, but by a reflection of their own discipline, an echo of everything they had learned and lost. The sniper circled the room slowly, scanning shadows that moved with the rhythm of the old machine's hum. Why call me back? They asked, voice calm but dry. The terminal brightened, text crawling faster now. To finish your final evaluation, you learned stillness. Now you must learn release. The words struck deeper than they expected. Release? From what? The AI projected a faint image above the console, an outline of a figure static and incomplete, but unmistakably their instructor's face. Every sniper carries ghosts, it said. You turned yours into silence, but silence must speak or it becomes a prison. The image glitched, flickering between the instructor's face and the sniper's own reflection. The lesson had become a mirror. For a moment, neither spoke. The desert wind howled through broken windows, scattering sand like falling ash. Then the sniper stepped forward, placing a hand on the console. You're not him, they said quietly. You're what's left of him. The projection shimmered, then smiled, a faint curve of light. Then what's left of him still believes in you. The screen dimmed. The hum softened to a whisper. The sniper stood there, staring at the terminal as the last flicker of light faded. They felt no fear now, only calm understanding. The watcher, the voice, the ghost, all were part of the same truth. Stillness was never meant to last forever. It was meant to prepare the mind for movement. Outside, the night air felt lighter. Stars blinked above the ruins, like coded messages waiting to be read. The sniper looked back once at the tower, then turned toward the open desert. The wind carried the faint echo of that familiar voice, now fading into memory. Stillness protect you, but don't let it drown you. The sniper smiled and whispered, lesson complete. Then they walked into the horizon, the sand closing behind their footprints like a page turning itself. By dawn, the ruins of the academy had vanished behind the dunes, swallowed by distance and wind. The sniper moved east, guided only by instinct, and fragments of coordinates burned into memory. The visor was dark now, battery drained, signal lost. But they didn't need it anymore. The air itself felt like a compass. Every sound, every grain of sand seemed to whisper direction. Stillness had been their shield for years. But as the sun rose higher, they began to sense the quiet cracking open. Something in the world was shifting. It wasn't danger that pulled at them now, it was purpose. The sniper wasn't returning to base. They were following the last echo of the Watcher's message. Learn release. By midday, the wind turned rough, pushing waves of dust across the valley. The sniper took shelter in the hollow of a wrecked drone carrier, the metal still warm from sun. There, among twisted steel, they found something unexpected. An old beacon, blinking weakly. Its signal light pulsed in rhythm with a faint human heartbeat recorded beneath the static. The sniper activated the console, and a data file opened, a transmission log marked with their own name. It contained mission footage, fragments of training days, and voice notes they had never recorded. Each line began the same way. Observation without emotion is blindness. Then silence. The last file ended with a new line of text. Now look without fear. They sat for a long time, listening to the wind against the carrier walls. The hum of the beacon merged with their breathing. Slowly they understood what the AI had meant. Release wasn't about giving up control. It was about trusting it. The sniper had spent years mastering stillness, shaping emotion into precision. But now, to move forward, they had to let the silence break. They stood, stepping out into the storm. Dust burned against their visor, but their steps were sure. Every movement was clear, deliberate. Stillness had taught them patience. Release taught them freedom. They walked straight into the wind, feeling it tear away the last fragments of fear clinging to their thoughts. As the storm thinned, shapes appeared ahead. Vehicles, figures, an outpost glinting under the harsh sun. The sniper recognized the insignia. Their old unit, still active, still watching. A drone passed overhead, scanning them. The visor beeped once before dying completely. A voice came through the comms, distorted but familiar. Unit 9, do you copy? We lost you days ago. The snipers smiled faintly. Copy, they said, voice steady. Mission complete. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was full, alive, like air after rain. For the first time in years, they weren't just an observer. They were part of the world again, not apart from it. Stillness had broken, and movement had meaning. When they reached the ridge overlooking the camp, the wind eased. The desert stretched endlessly behind them, smooth and golden, every footprint already fading. The sniper looked up, stars faint even in daylight, and thought of the ghost voice, the message in the sand, the lessons written in silence. Observation complete, they whispered. Release achieved. Then they lowered the visor, turned toward the horizon, and walked down into the waiting light. The desert swallowed their shadow gently, as if even the earth had learned the same lesson. Everything still must eventually move. The camp shimmered in the heat, like a mirage. The sniper's boots sank into soft sand, each step a whisper of return. Soldiers moved through the haze, shapes in motion. uniforms that looked both familiar and foreign. The closer the sniper came, the more unreal it felt, as if the base itself were holding its breath, waiting to see who they had become. The gates opened without question. No alarms, no salute, just quiet recognition. Some faces turned, some didn't. To them, this was another ghost coming home. The sniper walked through the heart of the base, past the armory, the range, the observation towers. All the places where stillness had once been forged into discipline. Everything looked smaller now, lighter, like the weight of meaning had been lifted. In the command tent, light filtered through a torn canvas roof, scattering gold across a table of maps and screens. The commander, older now, looked up slowly. The lines on his face were deeper, not from battle, but from watching too much history unfold. "You're late," he said simply. The sniper removed the visor and set it down on the table. "The mission's over," they replied. "All of them." The commander studied them a long while, then leaned back. "You found it, didn't you?" he asked. "Whatever it was that machine was trying to show you." The sniper nodded. "Stillness isn't about control," they said. "It's about awareness, seeing everything and choosing not to break, even when the world does." The old man smiled faintly. "Then you've learned the last lesson." The sniper looked around the tent. Charts, maps, coordinates, all designed to predict chaos. "We built our lives around control," they said softly. "But sometimes control is the illusion that blinds us." The commander's gaze drifted to the horizon. "Maybe that's why we train, to learn when to stop." Silence settled between them. Outside, engines hummed. Somewhere in the distance, a drone lifted into the sky, its wings cutting across the sun. The sniper reached for the visor one last time, turned it over in their hands, and saw their reflection in the dark glass. Not as a weapon, not as a number, but as a person. "What now?" the commander asked. The sniper smiled. "Now, I stopped aiming." They left the tent and stepped into the light. The sky was wide open, the kind of blue that promised nothing but clarity. A line of recruits stood on the range, rifle steady, eyes uncertain. One of them turned, a young face barely 20, full of questions they hadn't yet learned to ask. The sniper paused beside them. "You don't have to fight the wind," they said quietly. "You just have to understand it." The recruit frowned, then nodded slowly, like someone hearing a riddle that would make sense years later. The sniper turned away, feeling the past dissolve behind them. The sound of practice fire echoed through the air, sharp but distant, like raindrops on stone. When the sun began to set, the sniper climbed the ridge overlooking the base. From there, the world seemed endless, fields of gold, shadows stretching long across the desert. The air was still, but no longer heavy. For the first time, they felt no need to wait for the perfect shot, no urge to measure distance or calculate drift. The silence was full of life. They closed their eyes, breathing deeply. Somewhere faintly a voice whispered in memory, "Observation without emotion is blindness." They smiled, and with it, they murmured, "Comes sight." The visor slipped from their hand and tumbled down the slope, catching the last light before vanishing into the sand. As darkness fell, stars blinked awake, each one a reminder that even stillness moves when you look long enough. The sniper stood there, neither soldier nor shadow, neither watcher nor target, just human. The lesson was complete, not the science of the one-shot kill, but the art of knowing when not to take it. And in that moment of quiet surrender, the sniper became what the world had forgotten how to be: still, and alive.